Sebas, how are you, bro? Thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Thanks.
How did you get to receive my amazing Uruguay mate?
It was great. Unexpected. I never expected you to have this ready.
I like to treat my guests really well.
You are now listening to The Jet Life Uncovered, an insightful podcast that explores the minds of those who've conquered to live a meaningful life in the air and on the ground. Whether you're a pilot, frequent flyer, or celebrity, we uncover the deep truths of what it's like to live life in and out of the jet. I'm your host, Fernando Contreras, airline pilot, personal trainer, and intervention coach. You're about to take off into a conversation with individuals in which we get to know their intersection between living a purposeful life and reaching peak performance. The Jet Life Uncovered podcast starts now.
So I want to give everybody a little bit of a background for you. You're a U.S. major airline captain. You're a black belt in Jiu Jitsu, and you were born in Uruguay and had a different life here in the United States. And I'd love to talk about all these different accomplishments that you've had, but I'd love to start first your life in Uruguay. Where were you born exactly in Uruguay, and how was it growing up there?
So I was born in Uruguay, in the state or the capital, which is Montevideo. And we actually fly there with a 787 out of Miami. And Montevideo is the city. And then it was a small little town named Colón, Pueblo Ferrocarril. Very small town. Then I moved to a bigger city, or in the city, but a bigger neighborhood. Came to the States when I was about 13 years old. So.
Wow. So do you have a lot of memories from the 13 years you were there?
Yeah, absolutely. How
was it growing up there? Like in terms of culture, in terms of, environment that you were in?
So I grew up in a different culture than most people understand of Latin America. Over there, we have a very different culture. It's much more European-like, if you would. Our culture and customs are very similar to the ones in Argentina. But it's a very humble country, very small. I think we have a total of 3.2, 3.4 million people now. And a lot of us are scattered around the world, but very small country, came from a very humble beginning, never had an aspiration to become a pilot. Over there, you either become a military pilot or you have to go the civilian route. That requires a whole lot of money. So it's almost out of sight. You don't,
out of reach.
It's out of sight, out of reach, out of everything. Just came from very humble beginnings. I was able to make the best of what I had at the time. I always had a fighting mentality, keep going, keep growing.
Mentally and physically.
Yeah, physically and mentally. Yeah, both. But that never stopped me. I always had the dream of becoming a pilot. I used to see different little planes flying over the airport, one of the small regional airports in the area. And back then they used to throw flyers out the windows. So it was political campaigns or whatever else.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of like one of those things that I'm like, I want to be one of those guys. And my aunt at the time, she was married to this great, awesome dude. His name is Danilo. And he actually was an aviation fanatic. He was aficionado. Took me to my first air show, and I fell in love with it. I saw C-130 drop paratroopers out of the plane. It was that's what I want to be. I want to do that. I want to do all of it. I want to jump out of the airplanes. I want to fly the airplanes. I want to do all of that.
Should be a stuntman.
Yeah, something like that.
Tom Cruise over here.
Something like that. But at the time, I ended up doing it later on in life when I was a paratrooper in the Army, so in the U.S. Army. But I never imagined that was going to be the course of life or the route that I was going to follow. Just grow up in a different environment. And so it was out of reach, out of sight, out of reach, out of everything. So coming to the States, that turned everything into a different animal. So that's when I was really able to dream of aviation.
Yeah. So your dream started to become more of a reality when you moved to the United States.
Absolutely.
Can you take me back to 13 years old, first day when you got to the U.S.? How did you feel?
It was a culture shock. Like I said, our culture down there is completely different. I was used to a different lifestyle too. I was soccer games, sort of like a hooligan in the backstage, and I was in the streets a lot. It was a different culture, definitely different lifestyle too. And you come to the U.S. and then you feel the impact of following the rules and how everything is a lot more organized and people are doing the right thing. And it was a culture shock too. Over there, I was always hanging out on the street. I was always doing things, going out with friends. And when I got here, I couldn't speak a lick of English. I couldn't go out and play with other teenagers my age. It was a different culture. It was a different culture, different ways to do things. And to me, that was a little bit shocking at first. And obviously, as an immigrant, you see the movies and you come to the reality of Miami as an immigrant. You're like, oh, this is not what I saw in the movies. This is the white picket fence I imagined.
Yeah.
So so it was different. It was a lot different than what I expected, and a lot different than what I was used to.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about, so you have this fighting mentality about how you're always going to keep going forward. How did you overcome that? Because being a teenager and trying to, I guess, fit in a new culture in a new country is hard enough. Not speaking the language is even harder. Granted, maybe you met a lot of people that spoke Spanish and you vibed with them first, but how did you get over that, like, I guess, hump of, I need to be able to establish the English language proficiently so that I can make more friends than what I have now? Like, how did you push through that?
Yeah. So the first thing was I was starting to learn just by watching TV, listening to music. But when it all clicked in, it was in ninth grade. I was in Hialeah High. That's where I went to high school. And they sort of divide this school into the ESOL student, which is the English learning students. And then the other half is the American side, right? So the English classes. And once in a while, because I was in an aviation magnet program with our JROTC, so once in a while I got to take classes with the English speaking classes. And I remember saying that I like these classes and the girls here are a lot better looking than the ones in my classes. So I'm going to do everything I can, everything in my power to
just
learn.
To be with the chicks.
Just to be with the chicks. But also it was the embarrassment, believe it or not, amongst, and you probably know this too, amongst Hispanics, we tend to make fun of each other as kids, like, oh, your English is bad, or you have an accent. And oh, that bothered me so much as a kid growing up, and especially in high school. So I did everything I could to learn English, get out of those classes and say, hey, here I am. You know,
it's like, let's come here to make a statement in English and in Spanish.
In Spanish, both. Yeah.
So this magnet program you were in, also closely tied in with JROTC, is that what kind of started your career, your path towards the armed forces? And what armed forces were you in?
So I was in the U.S. Army, and yes, it was definitely one of the pivoting roles that had one of the pivoting roles in my career in aviation and in the military in general. I was part of two different programs. One was CAP, Civil Air Patrol, which it was my forming years, teenage years. It was one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. To be honest, I still have friends from that program that we still remain very good friends. In fact, somebody who I call my brother, he's like a brother to me. We met in that program. So it was young kids learning a bunch of stuff about aerospace and drills, ceremonies, and leadership, et cetera. And then JROTC is a little bit more linked with high school. And at the time, they had a program that you will be going to your initial classes throughout the day, and then after lunch, they will take you on a bus and you will go to George T. Baker Aviation School.
Which is here in Miami, right?
Yeah, in Miami, right across the Miami International Airport. They have the an easy, long easy or cozy right on the wall. So it was one of the greatest things ever too, because I met great people there. In fact, my teacher, my freshman year there was Mr. Shumi, an FBI agent, retired FBI agent, and from Panama. And we used to talk to him, and he used to teach us all kinds of stuff about aviation, airspace, and even English. You know, like he will correct us all the time, and it was one of those things that I really it was me and three other kids that we didn't speak very good English, and they were great because they didn't spoon feed us the information, but they certainly were patient with us, and that made a huge impact in my aviation career and in general.
Yeah, that's huge, man. It's truly wonderful people who dedicate their time to encourage and inspire those coming on, as younger in the younger generation. And I think that's what we all aspire to do as professionals who I think to me, I think that's one of the biggest keys of feeling successful is like, oh shit, I'm here, but that's not where it ends. It continues on as you empower these younger generations to be better than you are, at some point when they get to your level. And the Civil Air Patrol stuff. And I mean, I think things like that create friendships, like how you just mentioned that guy's a brother to you, is so key to have, man, because I believe friendships is one of the things as you're growing up in life that is a little bit of the glue to your, I guess, like comfort as you're growing up, right? As we're growing up, we're feeling different. We're going through different phases of life. People that we love are moving away because they have, I don't know, relationships or things, college and things like that. But those that you really find a strong friendship with, no matter how far away, you have always that sense of comfort that like, damn, this friendship is good no matter what. And I think nowadays as pilots, that's important. Because almost all of our friends are all pilots. Yeah. We don't have the same schedule. We get to hang out how often? Maybe like once every month and once every 2 months. But in the interim, in between, knowing that when I see you next month and we're going to hang out, it's like nothing. It's like I just saw you like 2 days ago.
Exactly. Right? And one of the things that I was just looking at one of the videos online on Instagram, and I found it's the Southwest guy. I forgot his name, but I got to give him credit because he made a video and it was so funny. He comes from work and his daughter is like, oh, when my dad comes from work, he thinks everyone's on a weekend schedule or something like that. And it was Wednesday. And she was like, Dad, I have to do homework. And he's like, let's go out to the pool and this and that. And that's true. That's so true. Yeah. It's Tuesday, Monday or whatever. And I'm calling them and they're like 9 to 5. They work for the government. So he's like, I'm 9 to 5, man. I can't go out tonight. I got to wake up early tomorrow. I'm like, man.
I know. But yeah, no, it's things like that are very important. So I want to jump into your path in the armed forces. Yeah. You started originally as in like a pilot program for the armed forces, or did you do something else and then eventually wanted to get to be a pilot in the armed forces? No.
So the idea was to become an officer for the U.S. Army. I was an ROTC at FIU and I had just started my first semester. And in order for you to commission in the ROTC program, you need to be a U.S. citizen. And you have to do it by your second year. My citizenship would have taken 5 years because you have to go through a process to get your green card, become a U.S. resident. And then after that, you have to be a U.S. resident for so many years. And then you get to apply for your citizenship. By the time that I was graduating, or by the time that I had to sign my commission papers, or basically say, hey, I'm going to commit to following the full program and you guys are going to pay for school, I'm going to go into the Army as an officer once I graduate. The timelines would have not matched. I would have been late by 6 months to a year with my citizenship. So they were like, hey, why don't you go the other route and become a National Guard member and then come back. But everything I do head on.
Full
and
on.
I was like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm going to go 100%. I'm going to go active duty. And then I'm going to apply for warrant officer once I'm in. And I ended up going enlisted. So I dropped out of school. At the time, also, I had a baby girl on the way. I had just found out too, which was another major reason why I ended up going enlisted. She's almost 19 now. By the way, so that baby girl now, she's 19.
She's an adult.
She just introduced me to her boyfriend, and I'm like, no. But exactly, I was like, no. But yeah, she's going to college too at FIU. But yeah, it was one of those things, and then that's when I decided, hey, I'm gonna go enlisted, and then once I do my time and I become a citizen, then I'm gonna become a pilot in the Army. And things didn't turn out that way. Once I went in. Right out of basic training, volunteered to go to airborne school, and 3 weeks later, I was shipping to Iraq. So I left to Iraq for a little over a year. And in that time,
this is what, 08?
This is 07, 06, 07. Yeah. No, actually it was 07, 08. I joined the Army in 2006. And then 2007, I was in 2006, 2007, I was in Iraq. 2007, early 2007, through 2008. So it was one of those things that that was the plan. That was what I was going to do. And I ended up spending a little over a year in Iraq. When I got back from Iraq, I got an assignment to be an instructor, a combatives instructor. We call it U.S. Modern Army Combatives, which is essentially similar to mixed martial arts. And that's what the Army adopted as a program. The Marines have another program. It's called MAC or something like that. So it's very similar in nature. And the reason why I got the job is because at the time that I was in Iraq, one of my jobs was to be personal security for one of the sergeant majors in the battalion. And we had a team of 4 gun trucks, what we call them is Humvees. You have two people that rotate between the gun and the driving seat, and then you have one medic that gets rotated through. And our jobs, various jobs throughout the year that I was there, we did all kinds of missions, from escorting supply trucks in the Humvees. We will go out there, pull security, or we will link with another unit and they will relay the convoy to the base they needed to go to. We did all kinds of stuff, but every once in a while, the sergeant major and the battalion commander will go out on missions. And so we got a special training. They give you kind of like the heads up of how everything works. And then you go and you become their essentially their bodyguard. It's called PSD, Personal Security Detail. Okay. Well, that sergeant major used to be an all Army boxer, and he knew I like jiu-jitsu and I like to fight. So he put a whooping on me a few times. I'm not gonna lie, he was really good. Rest in peace, Sergeant Major Myrich was his name. And he's like, "Hey, Gio, you want this job? I could hook you up, but you have to re-enlist." And I said, anything to get out of the 82nd Airborne. Because when we got back from deployment, I knew how it was going to be. It was going to be training out on the field, doing All-American Week. For those of you who do not know what All-American Week is, it's basically you either participate in a sport or you're going to be standing there in formation, being part of this great parades, and everyone hates them. So I was like, I'm not having any of that. So I said, I'll re-enlist for another 2 years. And so I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. I became an instructor at the Old Army Combative School. And that was probably one of the greatest jobs I had, to be honest. Reason being is that I learned so much leadership. And I was the youngest ranking guy there. I showed up twice before they actually took me in, because I had orders to go there. But they're like, that doesn't mean you have a job as an instructor. You got to earn it. So they made me go 10 rounds with 2 of the best guys they had at the time, which was Dave Chappelle. One of the guys was David Chappelle, kind of like the comedian Dave Chappelle. Yeah. And Andrew Dave Chappelle, he whooped me for 5 rounds straight. And Stelly was the other guy, and he was also a professional fighter, and very nice guys. They actually became mentors of mine throughout the years, but definitely had to earn the spot. And so I had to do that twice. And they said, "Hey man, you didn't quit. You didn't flinch. You kept coming. We want you here if you want to take the job." And so I did. And to me, it was an honor. It was the youngest ranking guy in the school, in the history of that school to begin with. And the level of responsibility was tremendous. I got to teach everything from cooks to the most elite special operations, from Army to Air Force and Marines. We got to train generals all the way down to a private. So it was something that someone with a rank as low as mine was not getting exposed to, or very seldom you find jobs that are able to give you that exposure. So for me, it was a great leadership lesson. And it lasted about 2.5, 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to give a little bit of a background in terms of your position as an instructor for combatives. Mm-hmm. Where did you get this experience of combat before you got this, opportunity? Yeah. The most rudimentary way to tell you this, when I was a kid in South America, you fight 2-3 times a day. There's no options. Yeah. You grow up and over there it's
law. It was rules of the jungle, man. You look at me the wrong way, I have to fight you, or I'm gonna be the next kid you pick on. And unfortunately, that's the culture that not everything in Uruguay is like that. I want to be very specific about it. It's a beautiful country. Uruguay is a very beautiful, very cultural, very civilized country. Because the economic situation I had at the time, I grew up in the not so nice part of town. And so that's how things happen down there. And so that spirit of like, I'm going to fight you. I don't care. We're going to have to do this. That the warrior spirit is part of our culture as it is. As you know, the soccer teams, that's like the motto is like, we never give up. It's just engraved in our DNA. But specifically to me, to my life, that's just how it goes. It's I grew up in that environment, and that's how things turned out. And then I loved the aspect of grappling, and I started training right after high school. And it was just one of those things that I needed to control, that little fiery spark, if you would. You have to learn how to control it. And at the time, I didn't have any discipline or any sort of criteria to go by. And when I started learning jiu-jitsu, that's when my level of respect started growing, and it lit up. It was that mindset of like, hey, you could go into a mat and we're all friends, we're training hard. And there's always someone that is going to be bigger, stronger, faster. We respect each other no matter what, because tomorrow you might be the fastest, strongest, best guy in the mat. And what are you going to do? You're going to pick on other people? No, we're here to train. We're here to practice. And so that was kind of like almost like a alignment to all that. And it taught me so much discipline. And then you add that up to the Army spirit, which is warrior mentality. And it was just something that I think that it was just part of who I am,
Yeah, it's like controlling the beast.
Oh yeah, much. Absolutely.
So at this point, I just want to bring back a lot of the things that you have said. Mm-hmm. You grew up in a not so nice area in Uruguay, smaller town. You move into a bigger one. You have aspirations to be a pilot because you saw this airplane passing out flyers and you're like, I want to be that guy. You go to an air show and you're like, wow, I really want to be a pilot. Then you get your sights and the opportunity to come to the United States. You overcome learning the language of, English. You make friendships. Now you're at this point of you're getting offered a position in which nobody younger than you has obtained. Mm-hmm. Your experience in terms of, physical fighting and mental fighting has gotten you here. How are you feeling at this point? Do you feel like at this point you're like, holy shit, I think I have made it? Or like maybe not fully made it, but like, did you feel you were on the right track at this point?
That's a question that I still to the day I ask myself. And here's the two answers that I always come up with. Obviously, I was a lot younger and more immature than I am today. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I realized that I was out of focus. I was out of focus with aviation and all the dreams and aspirations. I was maybe once in a blue moon taking a flight lesson or studying a manual or something like that, even though I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I also think that a lot of times, things in life, whether it's a job, it might be being a CFI or being a charter pilot or whatever it is, you might think, well, this is not exactly what I need right now. But without you knowing, it might be the lesson you need in that stage of your life. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by it. Had I not been exposed to that kind of leadership, okay, where I was training generals, okay, and privates at the same time, and it taught me so much humility. So one day I'm teaching a general. I'm the greatest thing ever. I'm this young punk teaching the generals of the United States Army. The next day I'm teaching a cook. And so it taught me, one day you could be up here, one day you could be down here. So don't let it get to you. One day I was teaching one of the most elite special operations guys, the elite of the elite. The next day I'm teaching cooks. And guess what? Sometimes the cooks outperform the guys that were in the specialty units, believe it or not. Wow. So it teaches you, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
One day I'm teaching captains that they think they own the world. And you got to tell them, I'll wait. When you guys are done chit-chatting, I'll continue, sir. And so that teaches you how to be humble, respectful, but mark your tone. Yeah. Yeah. So I learned so much just from being there in that environment. and many, many other things that I could bore you with. But I learned so much that I think that perhaps it was not where, if I were to make a paper drawing of what my career should have looked like or my life should have looked like, maybe it's not exactly reference to aviation or not exactly in that realm of things. But I tell you, I've learned so many valuable lessons that still transpire with me today, and even in my leadership position today. So to answer your question directly, yes, I think that I was in the right place at the right time. Even though sometimes I feel that I should have been somewhere else, I was in the right place at the right time.
I completely agree with that. Yeah. Sometimes, everybody has their path and their timing, and it's something that obviously we don't control. We can work really hard towards it. We can have the discipline towards it. If you believe in God and any of that or whatever higher power you believe in, your time is your time when it is. For some reason, it wasn't before, or maybe it could have been after. But I do agree that everything that you learned, wow, I mean, that was fucking beautifully said. Like that was awesome. What an experience, bro.
And I was getting paid to go fight and represent the Army. I can't beat that, man. I was meeting some of the best grapplers in the world. I was shaking hands and taking pictures with them. And that was pretty awesome too. But
experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So then jiu-jitsu, let's get into jiu-jitsu. When did that come into play? Like officially going through the ranks of the belt system?
So I really got interested in doing all of that when I started training. In fact, I started training at a place here in Miami by FIU. It's called Freestyle Fighting Academy.
Okay.
The Aviation,
is that like an MMA thing?
It's an MMA school. Okay. The Aviation brothers own it. In fact, Jorge Masvidal? Jorge Masvidal is one of the UFC fighters. He was the VMF or baddest motherfucker. He won the belt. Okay. So he actually started training there. He was an instructor there because he's cousins with Marcos and David. And so he was actually teaching classes. He was a scrawny little guy, but he hasn't changed much. Like he's legit the way he is today. Yeah. He's actually the way he used to be back in 2005, 2004. He's legit. He's like that street. Wow. Let's go fight. At the time he was fighting backyard fights with Kimbo Slice and all these guys out there. Shit. So Jorge Masvidal, a great instructor too. Great. Even at a young age, he was a great instructor. So that's when I started. When I got into the Army, I started competing in training, but very sporadically because I didn't have a specific base, or I would be watching tapes or magazines on grappling from Iraq. I used to get this care packages with magazines, and I would, every time I had a chance, I would just take a look at the moves, and in my mind, I used to drill. I shit you not, man. I used to drill in my head. I used to almost like a aerobatic pilot that was going through the motions. I used to do that over there because we didn't have mats. We didn't have time to go train. So when we had time, I would just mentally rehearse in my mind. And I used to watch tapes on Marcelo Garcia and all the great grapplers all the time. And then when I got to the combative school, that's when it got really disciplined. We were training 3 times a day. We were not joking around, and it was a training camp every single day. And once a month or twice a month, they brought in the Greco wrestlers from the World Athlete Program, which the Army has, the Air Force has, everybody has them. And they put us through these intense workouts that even till the day, I don't know how we were able to keep up, because these guys are specimens. And that's when I started learning about ranking and stuff like that, and understanding the strong points. We had boxers, world-class boxers at the school. We had great wrestlers, incredible wrestlers actually. And then we had really good coaches and MMA coaches. And we used to feed off each other. And I was a jack of all trades, but master of none. And that was my thing. I would just keep, learning from everybody. And, but the one thing I had, there was no quitting in me. And so that was my thing, that could just keep up. Sometimes I would get whooped. Sometimes I would go in and had a great training session, but you start learning and getting more motivated to advance in your ranks, your belt line and stuff like that. But I started worrying about belt collars and promotions, to be quite honest. My thing was, how can I learn and keep improving? And if the belt comes my way, great. And if it doesn't, I don't care, because my thing was MMA. So I didn't really care if I had a belt or not. I could care less. I just wanted to smash your teeth in, win, and that's it. That was the end result for me. So belt was not a thing for me. I knew it was a rank system. I just didn't care for it.
Wow. So then you got, you started evolving in those belts, and you started competing in jiu-jitsu specifically. You got to one of the highest achievements in getting a black belt, which is awesome. And then there's obviously more achievements after that, but you also won a lot of competitions. How would you defer the level of competitions from just jiu-jitsu versus an MMA? Because when I joined jiu-jitsu after meeting you and versus my MMA school, there's like different styles. You know, one, traditional jiu-jitsu, you're going for that point system to win in a competition. The other one is you're fucking fighting for your life, you know, getting out of a situation. How was it for you to make that transition from having the ability to throw punches and kicks and also grapple versus, just grappling right now, just ground game?
It's tough. It's tough, but when you train a lot, you kind of get used to it. But there's definitely two mindsets. When I was doing MMA, I don't do it anymore. Maybe for fun, I'll train and spar. But in MMA, you have two things that you got to think about. Never get position over a submission, ever. Submission never takes over a position. So we used to tell ourselves all the time, position over submission, position over submission. The difference with jiu-jitsu, I could risk being on a dominant position for a submission without running the risk of getting my teeth smashed in, right? In MMA, you don't run that luck. If you give up a top position, for example, where you're dominant and you could strike from the top, you will run the risk of getting counterattacked by your opponent. Although it's a sport, it's a much more dangerous sport, in my opinion. Jiu-jitsu has its dangers, and there are some great athletes that are competing out there. And they are into the fighting mentality. Jiu-jitsu is a tough sport. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of risk to injuries and a lot of risk to in a competition, right? And a high level competition, I should say. There's a lot of risk that are being taken when you're in a competition. However, when you're in MMA, is a whole completely different animal. Your mindset has to change. You have to tune out the world out of your face. You have to be right there in the fight. You have to follow your flight plan. Or fight plan at the time. And you have to be...
No pun intended.
No pun intended. But you have to be very disciplined. It's very easy to go into instinctual mode and you just start losing your track, losing your techniques, your plan, your everything. So it's very easy. You go into panic mode, and that's one of those things that it's different from MMA and jiu-jitsu. If that happens in jiu-jitsu, you're okay.
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is you get submitted, you tapped. And MMA, that will cost you a cut, a broken nose, knocked out tooth. And that is just, at the very least, you could get knocked out really bad. And those are very, very hard injuries to come back from.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, I think the combative of, or at least the amount of impact that there is in MMA is obviously a lot stronger than competing in jiu-jitsu. But what I think in the jiu-jitsu competitions, the speed at which, like black belts are competing at, man, it's almost like, when you feel like, oh shit, I didn't see that punch coming. Bro, there's some competitions that I see, I'm like, I didn't even see the fucking guy get knocked down, and all of a sudden he's on the floor. Or, and it's so impressive at how fast people can get in an art. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about learning that. It's like, to me, I'm so passionate about learning how can you put your body in these different situations, whether it's in jiu-jitsu, whether it's in, taekwondo, judo, whatever it is. Manipulating your body in that way is extremely interesting to me. Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit now. So you've achieved black belt, you've competed. Then when did your official flight training, here we go, I'm going to do this all the way, begin? And were you still competing at the same? Were you balancing both?
No. So after I left the combative school, I went to a unit, a 7th Special Forces group. I was a GSB, or Group Support Battalion, and you're basically an attaché to the unit. And if they like you, they might keep you in one of the battalions, and you might do certain missions you do with them, certain missions you won't do with them. It's a very interesting job. I received a whole lot of training, which was great. And it was one of the best, also one of the best duty stations and assignments that I had. But the tempo was a whole lot different. I went from training 3-4 times a day, exercising all day, competing, and that was basically a pretty boy job. to now I'm in the tempo of deployment, rapid deployments. We're doing fast rotations through different parts of the world. And at the time when I got there, they had just moved from Fort Bragg, North Carolina to Destin, Florida, which is an amazing, beautiful place to be at. It was it was the epitome of assignments for me. And we did some training, we got ready, and we deployed to Afghanistan. And when I was in Afghanistan, I said, hey, listen, this is my third duty station. I had to get my stuff together. And I'm going to apply for this warrant officer thing. I'm competitive. At the time I had an associate's degree. I had already started pilot training when I was in Destin. I had started doing flight lessons in Destin, Florida. I was close to my private pilot's license. All I needed was to put the packet together to go to flight school, to apply for flight school. And the biggest challenge on that packet was my medical. Reason being, I have a herniated disc. And at the time, there were 0 waivers for that kind of spinal injury. And even today, it's a little hard to get. But once you're in, it's a little bit easier to manage it once you're already a pilot. But if you're trying to get to be a pilot, especially a helicopter pilot, and you have a spinal injury, it becomes a bit of a hassle. So I kept myself motivated. I was window shopping airplanes every time I got a chance. I will print out some stuff in the office before I went out on missions. I used to read this book. It's called The Flying Carpet from one of the writers from Flying Magazine. I highly recommend. Easy read. It's a small book, but The Flying Carpet is a very, very nice book. He tells the story of him flying all over the Midwest and stuff in a Piper Cub and camping out, and it was amazing. Cool. And so I kept all that going, and when I got to the point that I got back, all I needed was my medical. My packet was complete. I had a private pilot's license at this time. I went to get my medical, denied. I went to Rucker to see if I could go directly to the horse's mouth, denied. And so I said, I'm 7 months out. I could re-enlist and wait 2 more years with the hopes that they will grant me another medical, or I could get out now and get it done. And at the time, all I wanted to do was to fly for some sort of agency like Border Patrol or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So that's when I started my training. It was full-time. I finished my training in Pompano Beach, American Flyers. I did my private pilot's license in Destin, Florida. The rest was all done in American Flyers in Pompano Beach. And that's when I was like, okay, well, I need to build time. And so I started working as a CFI there for a little bit. I was not very happy with the job. The pay was slow, as we all know, when you start as a flight instructor, and it was just not my thing. You know, I knew the nuances of being an instructor from when I was an Army combatives instructor. And I was like, I don't want to get burned out. I really like flying, and I don't want to get this to be one of those things that I'm like, I got to go teach. So I ended up looking for jobs in between, and I was doing a little bit of charters here and there. I was doing Cirrus Training Center. I was an instructor there. That was one of the greatest jobs ever. Yeah. And then I got to fly for Cape Air. Well, that was my first experience with like Schedule 135. And I said, man, this airline thing is not that bad. You know, it kind of it's cool. You got a schedule, you got your days off. Pay wasn't good there at the time, but I don't mind it. You know, I'm going to give it a try. And then that's when I applied for Endeavor. And that was my first regional airline that I flew for. And I loved it.
Nice.
The training was great. Very challenging. Yeah. Most of these kids that they were hiring at the time, they were university kids that went through aviation programs. My program for university had nothing to do with aviation at the time. In fact, I did it. I finished my undergrad in Nova, and then I was doing aviation classes at the same time, but it was not a combined program. Mm-hmm. So when I got there, most of these kids had done, and great friends of mine now, and some of them became friends of mine, and some of them I had lost contact with, but they had gone through the summer camps where they will go through a mini type rating, and obviously they did it in the CRJs. Oh, wow. And this was my first time reading about an APU functioning and priorities and all that. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Now when I go home, but I was like, no, I'm gonna truck through it. That no quitting mentality. I was like, they're gonna have to drag me out of here before I quit. Yeah. And so I kept studying. I did a lot of extra studying. I did a lot of extra reading and a lot of YouTubing.
That helps so much.
I'm a visual learner. It's exposure in the Army where I'll tell you what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what you're going to learn. I'm going to let you do it. And then you're going to show it to me and show me how you know how to do it. So it was kind of like repeating things that I would read or study through videos. And so I clicked. And then when I did it click, it was nonstop. And it was great training at Endeavor. I got an opportunity to take leave and on a leave of absence, finish graduate school. And then I came back to Endeavor and got hired by JetBlue, and then our major
airline now.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn, man. That is I'm actually just quite inspired right now by listening to everything you've been saying. Because, like you, I also did come from a country in South America. I was born in Venezuela, but then I came here when I was 8. And, it was that kind of like that same mentality of you have to get through these barriers in order to succeed here. And if you don't go through those tough times and overcome those, it doesn't teach you things later in life.
Yeah.
When we were in our home countries, like I was on soccer teams, the language wasn't an issue. It was like, you were good. Then that changes when you come here. And I think those things for people who come from different countries to United States and do amazing things like you have, it's inspiring for other people, and I mean, man, just to be in the position you are right now, a captain of a major U.S. airline, you take that moment from now on. If you look back real quick, if Apple can put, those videos that Apple Photos makes for you of like a trip you had.
Yeah.
And it puts, imagine if it does it throughout your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see it yourself. I would break down in fucking tears. I'm sure you would too. Cause it's just like, you at the moment are not realizing how hard you're fighting.
Yeah.
You only, when you look back at it, you're like, oh fuck, how did I do that? Yeah. Can I still do that now? And of course you can. But then you also think like, well, when I was younger and I was 21 or 22, I would run on 3 hours of sleep and still do everything. Yeah. Fuck that. I cannot do that right now.
No, especially after a few beers. No way.
No way.
No way. No way.
But it's so amazing to hear that it's inspiring, bro. It's inspiring to hear stories like that. And I'm sure everyone who's listening is feeling that same inspiration too.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like you're a martial artist. This, when you first walk into a gym, you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to, and then you become stronger and stronger and stronger. When you look back, it just becomes normal, and you're cognizant that you don't know everything. I don't know everything, but I'm pretty squared away. I try to be squared away. And if I'm not, and if I make mistakes, I keep growing. But I look at it as looking back. Yeah, I think that if I was a young Sebastian and looked at the men that I've become, there's always room for improvement, but we definitely be proud of that. But I think that it's one of those things that, like we mentioned earlier, you become stronger and you go through different transitions and things that you experience. And I never looked at things like hardships. I never looked at them like, oh, poor me. Like the way I look at it is, dude, look at the challenge that I just overcame. That challenge made me who I am today, and it keeps making you stronger and faster and quicker, and you learn more chokes and more moves, and man, I want to go grapple now, man. Let's go.
Oh, man, there's not enough room in here, bro. There's not enough room in here.
But yeah, it's one of those things that you just keep growing, and you just look back, and it's like, it's great. I like to see what the hard work and dedication I put into the career and everything that I've done. But it's one of those things that I'm now like, okay, it's like, what's next? What can we do next?
So I had an amazing opportunity to do an episode with Antonina Shevchenko. Mm-hmm. She was in the UFC, and her sister, Valentina, has also been very successful in the UFC. But I asked Antonina this question because she's a pilot too, and she flies. I can't remember, citation. What's that nice citation? Citation 10 or something like that. I think, I don't know. It's like one of those private jets, and it's really great. I really love seeing her content. And I asked her this same question I'm going to ask you. Do you see a lot of similarities in martial arts and also flying airplanes?
In what aspect?
In the aspect of leadership, in the aspect of dedication, in the aspect of discipline. Like, do they relate to you? Not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But what are the relation or what can you relate from one another that it does kind of combine?
Absolutely. It's one of those things that I mentioned earlier today, you know, the difference between training a general and a private, and you still look at it with respect and stuff like that. So I always try to look at those things, you know, flying the small airplane or flying an airliner, I look at it with the same level of respect, you know, and when I talk about respect, I look at it safety wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the leadership you learn, you know. You don't walk into an airplane and just because you hold the highest rank as a captain or the highest authority, you don't walk in there like you own the gym, right? You don't own into the airplane like you own the airplane.
Right.
Yeah, you got to set a tempo and you set the standard for everyone else, but you do it kindly by leadership, by leading by example, that kind of thing. The same in the mats, right? I walk in as a black belt. And I could be that black belt. It's like, oh, I own the mat. I've been doing this for 20 years, 15 years, whatever. Or I could do the warm-ups with the white belts. And, hey, let me help you correct this. Let me teach you how to tie the belt right? Or, hey, you're having trouble with that takedown. Let me show you how it's done. Let me show you a little trick that I've learned over the years, you know?
Yeah.
So I try to do the same thing, you know, all right? Small little gestures, especially with your cabin crew or with your FO. I had an FO look something up there and be like, hey, I thought it was that way. It was this setup. And I was like, you know what? Let me check before I tell you no, but you might be right. And we checked it out. He was doing the walk around. I pull it up and I want to say, hey, thanks for catching that. You were absolutely right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that I think, and if it was me as an FO, I would look at him as like, hey, you know what? That opens up the window for them to be able to talk. Same in jiu-jitsu. I had an old Brazilian guy tell me one time when I was at the FIU school, brand new training. And I'll never forget what he said. He's like, Sebastian, I'm going to tell you something. And this is not a jiu-jitsu trick. This is an all men's trick. He said, always listen to everybody because you could learn from a white belt. And I still remember till the day, he said, you could learn from a white belt the same that you could learn from a black belt. And it is true because there might be a technique, a choke that you might not have seen the grip, or you might have learned the grip and take that on over the years. And then there's a little trick to it that white belt caught on to. He might be able to say, hey, I saw the professor doing this and he's teaching. So the same with airplanes. You know, a flight attendant tells me the other day, hey, I saw this. I don't remember exactly what part of the cabin it was, but it's like, it's not supposed to look like this. And I was like, hey, you know what? Let me check that out for you. Let me check the book. And indeed, she was right. And so what I'm getting at is that absolutely it's a direct reflection. Martial arts had taught me so many lessons that in leadership, that I still till the day use in aviation. So absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That is.
And the hard work ethic. When you're competing and you're training your behind off, you're training your ass off.
Yeah.
Because you know you go out there, you're going to embarrass yourself if you don't train.
Yeah.
I don't mind losing if I gave everything I had. But if I knew I was drinking, I was not dieting right, I was not training right, and then I go into competition and get my ass, they're mopping the floor with me. That's an embarrassment to me.
Yeah.
If I gave you everything I had and they mop me, by all means,
different story.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
I give you everything I had. So the same thing when I go into training or I go into a trip, there are times that I go and review some of the procedures just because I've been off for 10 days and I just want to do them. I don't want to know them if I have to dig through my brain. I don't have time for that. I need to snap them right on the spot. And the same with takedowns. If I'm getting ready for a competition, I'm working half hour on takedowns, drilling them until they're muscle memory.
Yeah.
Same thing with aviation. So yes, to answer your question, absolutely translates to aviation.
Damn, that was spot on, man. That's wonderful. No, I'll give you a hug after. A little far away. Let me ask you this. What is your favorite thing about being a captain right now?
To be able to lead, to be able to set an example, a good one,
a
good example. And I know I probably fall short in some of the instances. I'm cognizant of that, but to be able to go out there and maybe a cabin crew that has been stuck, and it has happened to me. They're stuck all day with canceled trips, this and that, broken airplanes, and you just buy them a round of coffee and be like, hey, you know what? Today, you don't rush. Your safety checks are first. Let's get you some food. We're not going to take this airplane, you know, or little things like that, you know.
It makes the biggest difference.
Huge difference.
Yep.
Huge difference.
Yep.
Hey, we got 3 labs. One of them's broken. How do you feel about this? I already got my decision made up in my mind.
Right.
And I have a really good,
Right.
strong decision making criteria, but I still want to hear their opinion because they might change that decision.
Yeah.
They might change the decision. Be like, you know what? I didn't look at that point of view. It's like, it's 3.5 hours. We're going to go with 200 people in an airplane and we're going to have only 1 lab or 2 labs.
Yeah.
It's a little tough, right?
Yeah.
1 lab in the back, 1 in the front. You know what? Let's get another airplane.
Yeah.
But the fact that you listened to them and you took, and that's something I learned from the Army. It was leadership. You know, you gotta hit a full picture of the battlefield. And sometimes the young private in the corner with a machine gun is the one that is looking at an angle on the hills or in the ridge line that you're not. And so that's one thing that I've learned on this thing. The guy in the back, the number 4, that you always talk about how they hide away, but they might got a point of view or an experience they had from a different flight. So I take that in. So that's the point, the part that I love the most as far as the leadership aspect of flying.
Yeah. Completely agree.
And then the great pictures and selfies. That's the other one.
Yeah. Dude, I could not agree anymore with you on all those. And I think that being part of, not being part of, but being a true leader is listening to what your team has to say. And, but I want to touch up on something here very specifically, because your leadership, you gained it a lot from being in the Army, and that taught you a lot of things. But I do want to share with the audience as well that it's not, you don't necessarily have to, like, let's say you didn't go to the Army. Let's say you weren't in the armed forces. Like, that does not mean that you don't have a criteria to be a leadership on.
No, absolutely not.
Leadership is passed down from, for me, in my experiences that I've had at the regional and also this U.S. major airline that we're both in, is the people who are leading me at some point, right? What did I love and take from them? Versus the people who I really didn't like flying with, what do I not want to be like, right? And then you mix that up with your own little things that you've learned through experience in life. I also did JROTC too when I was in high school. That, I think, was the beginning of this leadership mentality for me, because before that, it's not that I wasn't a leader, but it was just like my priorities were just different. I get into that JROTC, this Sergeant Major Cruz, that guy, for me, he like took me under his wing, bro. And it was the confidence that they give you to put you in a little bit of a leadership. It's the same thing that when a captain gives a first officer that confidence of like, hey, you were right. Nice job catching that. Yo, the person feels like, wow, I fucking matter in this situation, you know? And building on that from previous leaders in that position is really, really good. And I think sometimes people may not recognize that sometimes, of like, hey, how did this captain really like lead you in this position? Did you really take all that in? And are you going to apply that when you're later on? So I think that's an important aspect as well. We're always learning. We're always taking in new leadership skills. We're always learning from somebody else. And just like how you said in martial arts, you're learning from a white belt. I can't tell you how many times as a captain in regional and as a captain here at a major airline, because there's so much info, and sometimes you go so much time without flying on reserve, that a brand new FO tells you, hey, I think they changed the procedures to this. It happened to me the other day. They changed the procedure on some performance verification thing. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, can you actually? And then we had a conversation about it. It was like, oh, I was very thankful for that. I'd be like, thank you for showing me that. You know, like, those are the key things that not only am I learning, am I embracing my leadership, but that person's also being.
There's other means to learn leadership too. It doesn't necessarily have to be just Army. And I'll tell you what, the Army leadership too could be a double-edged knife if you don't know how to deliver it right, because we're not in the Army no more. And I'll tell you about it if you want. But I try to pick up from other people. I read a few books on leadership from Churchill, from presidents in the U.S., even from athletes. And they have great leadership. There's one thing that I love is to learn about how to be a better leader. But I will say this though. Communication, I think, is the glue that sticks all your techniques or different leadership styles together. And that's actually what I focused during my my graduate degree, it was that my thesis in the project was based on communications and CRM. So you could be the best leader in the Army that you could be, or bring this great experience from a different thing. But if you don't have the communication skills to relate that information, or the tone, the right tone to set the right tone, you could come across the biggest a-hole in the whole airline.
Yeah.
So it's
that's very true.
Keep that in mind. It was a blessing to be in the Army and learn that leadership. But if you don't know how to deliver that information that you've learned in the civilian world, it could be a double-edged knife. And it happens a lot. And you know this in the industry. That is one of the common denominators right there. You know,
because it's all about perspective.
Absolutely.
You have to, the way you deliver is based on, you got to think about how can I deliver this, viewing it from the other person's perspective, that you're going to get what I'm exactly trying to say.
Yeah.
It's not easy, bro.
And things that 25, 30 years ago were okay to say or act like, they're no longer acceptable. Our CRM has evolved and things are no longer that way, you know, and it's all in the name of increasing the level of safety margins, right? Exactly. So it's not like, well, 30 years ago is outdated. No, it's not that it's outdated.
It's just evolved.
It has evolved, and that's why we have better leadership and higher safety standards, right? So I do have to say, though, I've learned some of the greatest leadership lessons that I've learned in aviation have come from guys that have been in the industry, and girls too. I learned from various pilots, but people that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, not necessarily only in the airlines, but retired people. In fact, a friend of mine, he flies for one of the majors as well. His grandfather's a retired Navy guy, and not Delta. What was the other one? That they merged with Northwest. Incredible, great guy. Great pilot, and he will sit with us in the fire pit and we'll or in the farm. When we were in the fire pit, we'll talk with my friend about it. But he would, you know, and during the dinner table session that we had a little conversation there, we'll talk about things, and even my friend will relay some of the information. So let me tell you, it's about the delivery. It's not so much about the generation or the culture you come from or the airline. It's about the delivery. And overall, in my opinion, is you could lead and do everything you want, so long as safety is the first thing in mind. I think that you just can't go wrong. Some people might like it, some people might not. Right. That is where you put the glue and try to communicate and relay the message the best way possible. But overall, you have to worry about safety. So
man, I couldn't agree anymore. Again, you're just hitting the nail on the head. Every single question, man. Every single thing.
Am I reading the script right?
Well, Sebas, before we end this off, I want to ask you one more thing. And what would you tell your younger self right now, in this moment? What would you tell your younger self about anything? About anything in terms of life?
Well, it depends what stage of my life you're talking about.
Let's say when you just moved to the United States.
Man, I would have told myself, don't lose hope. You're almost there, believe it or not. Keep going. And I think the first year was the hardest. I would have been a lot more contempt had I understood the culture faster. I understood things faster and the opportunities. But I didn't know. I didn't know how to get them. It wasn't until like my first year of high school that I was fascinated by the U.S. But enjoy the process. That's one thing that I started getting my hours and my licenses and stuff like that. And you lose track. You just want to get to those 1,500 hours. And I cannot tell you, I still reminisce on some of the trips I used to do in those Club Dat 172s. The FAA is not watching, is it? But the 172s, and you go to Bimini like it was nobody's business. You wouldn't catch me when I was single engine 172 going to Bimini right now. But back then, and those were some of the best trips I've ever done. You know, it's like the small little Cessna. Enjoy that process. Enjoy the time building process, and just keep trucking, like we said in the Army. Keep trucking, man. You're going to be there. You're going to get there. Don't stress. I was very stressed about coming out of the military with a file this thick and having all these credentials. And then you get out and you really don't have much. And mine was thin compared to some of the guys that I work with. I mean, some of the guys that are incredibly qualified. But for me, it was one of those things, transitioning from being somebody to now I have no no skills, and this is what I want to do. And I was stressed about it. And so it was like, hey, enjoy the process, enjoy the ride, because it's going to be a good one.
I think that's the best piece of advice. Enjoy the process.
Yeah.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
Sebas, thank you so much for joining today, bro. It was a pleasure to have you.
I'm still going to choke you out in training.
No, we'll see about that.